I am now with two people who have just taken me down memory lane without me realising this was going to happen, because Emily and Lucien Taylor are the co-founders of the Oxford Information Labs, which is a cyber security firm, and we're going to talk about what that means in a minute. But Emily completely discombobulated me by saying she stood next to me in a bar once and left it hanging there. Emily, explain yourself.
Well, back in the day when you were the tech minister, Ed, you and I stood next to each other at a bar at an ICANN meeting.
Tell our listeners what on earth ICANN is.
Well, ICANN is the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, and it's one of those acronyms that when you spell it out, you're no wiser.
Yes, exactly.
Right? You know,
so keep going.
So we're all about, we've started a not-for-profit research organisation called the DNS Research Federation. And what we're trying to do is to increase the understanding of the domain name system and its impact on policy, cybersecurity and standards. And so
I'll jump in here because I was the minister.
Yeah,
and
show off.
The key point about this is the domain name system is basically the name of your website for people listening. So if you email somebody at Times Radio, you can email them. The email address is times.radio. Now, back in the day, it was .co.uk, and the Americans have got .com. And there are big debates about how to change the domain name system, and bringing in things like .radio was a very big deal. And it's all done through this organisation, the Incorporated of Assigned Names and Numbers.
Names and numbers, yes.
And it's it's not an official government organisation. Nobody really runs it, and that's also part of the big debate because the Americans and the Chinese tussle over it. But it is so arcane, but unbelievably important. For example, there was a big debate. People wanted the .xxx to be the adult site domain name, and obviously they're worth a fortune, because if you grab a .radio, you can sell it for a lot of money. Anyway, I digress. So what's your charity going to do?
It's a not-for-profit. So we do research and education, access to data and engagement in technical standards, because, you know, if you thought that ICANN was weird and arcane, and it is, the world of technical standards, which is also incredibly influential about the way we experience technology and how it's shaped, technical standards is also a world in itself. And one of the reasons Lucien and I wanted to set up the DNS Research Federation was because these worlds are so important to technology. We're so dependent on technology. And yet, you know, our research, our consumer research shows that, you know, only a minority of people, only 27% of people actually know what the DNS is. I don't know if you knew what the DNS was before you became minister.
27%, more like 0.27%,
right?
Surely.
And I think that you could probably have a more informed conversation with people about blockchain or AI than you can about the DNS. And yet everything you do online begins and ends.
How fragile the system is. But Lucien, you started your business as a cyber company. I mean, people may not know the arcane stuff about DNS. They do know about cyber, and they do know about cyber threats, and they do know.
Well, they're impacted by cyber threats.
They can have their money nicked.
Yes, that's right. I mean, 20 years ago, I was just a programmer. I moved from the arts into programming because that's where money was and that's where opportunities were.
What were you doing in the arts?
Well, that's another story, but
He was an actor for 10 years. We were both actors. Lucien went to Central School of Speech and Drama and did major roles in theatre and so on for 10 years as lead roles. And
I was not expecting this. This is not the script. I've got two former actors who are now at the heart of the cyber security
very similar
ecosystem.
Very similar.
That's amazing. In some ways, it's a story of hope for people who whose careers don't necessarily go in the right direction. But although I don't want to get too, because the government often gets criticised by saying, you know, have a proper career and work in technology. When I still think the arts is a proper career, obviously.
Well, and I think the arts is a proper career, and I don't think they're divided. I mean, I think as a musician, we were interested in technology in the early days. You know, some of the music industry are the first to use technology in computers before the techs did. So things like recording techniques and things like that.
Well, this interview has now completely gone off the reservation. But tell me, Emily and Lucien, what's it like as two former actors working in the most complicated area of technology? What do you think your experience as actors have brought to you to the world of technology?
I think that, you know, sometimes the world of technology can feel very detached from people.
Completely.
And a world apart. And what I hope we can bring is the ability to communicate and to remember what it means to people. You know, what's the point of technology on its own? There's no point to it.
I mean, I find it absolutely fascinating, for example, that technology doesn't use normal language. You know, when you're trying to do something, even with a basic function like Microsoft Word or something, and it goes wrong, you get these kind of bizarre messages instead of plain English telling you what to do.
I think it's terrible. And I think, you know, back to our laughing about the domain name system, actually, Lucien and I were in an industry meeting this week in Lisbon, and I was sort of sharing with them that, you know, our research is showing that a significant portion of people think that DNS stands for the Devon Nudist Society, right? and actually that's also our fault.
Yes.
Because if you can't, actually names are really important.
But this is what people forget. The internet was created in a lab, effectively, by techie scientists who used language that they could understand, and it exploded globally, but we're still using, as it were, the private language of the technologists.
Yeah, and
yes, and white males in American universities invented this, and they didn't anticipate its huge success. And it has inherent structural problems. And so what we're trying to do is trying to raise awareness, but also bring competing parties together in the DNS Research Federation, and trying to help give access to data, help smaller industries that are running the fabric and the structure underneath the internet have security for free, because we think security should be free, not something that's just for the wealthy companies. So we're trying to get people talking. You know, things like Northern Ireland was resolved by bringing people together, not pointing the finger. And it's a very delicate balance at the moment. It's a really hard game. And we did a lot of teaching in university. That's part of what we do at Oxford Information Labs, the other hat. I can talk to students about, fake news and AI, and they'll be studying that subject, but they won't have a clue about the DNS. Very few research students are covering that, and it's the fabric and the infrastructure of our internet.
But I think, given both your backgrounds, I think the world is crying out for an idiot's guide to kind of how the internet works, just to kind of how the plumbing works in plain language. I mean, I think, you know, DNS, ICANN, hugely complicated, but telling people why an internet address is like that is interesting. Anyway, I think we've got some food coming in, something for the weekend. So I've got a final question for both of you, which is, what is your favourite 80s band?
Oh, no. Mine is Dire Straits. Sorry.
Terrible choice.
Sorry.
You were going to be invited to
Can I sing it? If I can sing something.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to.
Do it.
No.
Do it. So I like Talking Heads.
Oh, Emily, you win, hands down. I was going to ask you what it was like to work as a husband and wife team, but I don't want to ask now that you're married to a man who chose Dire Straits as his favourite 80s band.
Well, I'm a bit of a sneaky Dire Straits fan myself, but given your reaction, I decided I was going to switch paths. It's really hard to think of just one band from the 80s, because the 80s is our era.
It is.
And the best music. And
we're all of a certain age on this show. So welcome back to the show. I've still got Emily and Lucien Taylor, who are the founders of Oxford Information Labs, in the studio with me. And there are lots of complicated reasons. One is that Lucien is still fuming that he was asked this question without any preparation, and the first words that came into his head were Dire Straits.
It's a dire answer.
He's now staging a sit-in.
I'm not going to leave.
He can think of a better band. But the other reason... Oh, good, yes.
Good.
You're back in my good books. Emily and Lucien are also quite sensibly stayed, because we're joined by the wonderful chef Leira Pedrazuela.
Hello.
Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, that's right.
Are you from Spain?
I am from Spain,
Oh,
yes.
I've got that right as well. I normally get everything wrong on this show. Were you Belgian Chocolatier of the Year? Were you a Chocolatier of the Year?
No, I did the Bake Off
you did
in the UK.
You did the Great British Bake Off Professionals.
Exactly, the professionals.
Wow.
I thought you were Chocolatier of the Year, I read on your website.
Yeah, I did a competition for a Chocolatier of the Year.
Okay. Now
yeah.
tell us about these pastries, because they look like wonderful works of abstract art, and they're being scoffed at speed.
Oh, we're
by
not meant to eat them.
Yes, no, you are. Of course you are. That's why you're here.
So this is the afternoon tea that we have prepared for the W Hotel in London.
So this is the W Hotel in Leicester Square, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a collaboration with a local artist from Brighton called Louise O'Hara.
Okay.
So she makes a fluid artwork that is inspired by nature.
Yeah.
So
There are leaves.
Yes.
And yes.
there is
And
shapes, and
yeah.
then there is
So I'm holding up one which is the shape of a green leaf with an orange motif on top.
yes. So this is called the Zen. So this is inspired by her Zen artwork, and then the flavors on these tarts are quite like exotic, like passion fruit, mango, matcha tea. So it's very fresh, and we try to bring her colors and her artwork and style into every cake that we have designed, and then we try to choose the right flavors as well for each of the creations.
So good.
Can we get a review from Lucien and Emily?
Okay, I'm eating a green long thing with brown stuffing in the middle and this sort of white streak, and it just looks absolutely beautiful, and it tastes light.
Yes, it
And
is.
beautiful.
I should say my one had fresh mango inside, which was a delightful surprise, rather than
Yes.
sort of thick, heavy
Yes.
sponge or anything
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So you can get your amazing award-winning pastries, because you've made pastries all over the world, haven't you?
In Europe.